Hey guys, thank you so much for rejoining us again. We are with a very special guest this afternoon, Mr. Hector Garza, who's running for the 195th District Court. Hector, we were talking a little bit earlier, and I was kind of reminiscing. You know, back when I was in high school, I was in a program, the Executive Assistance Program, back in probably mid '80s. And I was assigned to a court, Judge Larry Baraka, and I remember sitting there, and he was relatively new and young on the bench, and I just remember him always sitting there saying, "Hey, look, I'm going to give you this one chance, but if I ever see you again back in my courtroom," of course not talking to me, talking to the to the defendants, "if I ever see you in my courtroom again, I'm going to throw the book at you." And I kid you not, man, he would really, literally, throw the book at those repeat offenders to give them that one chance. And he took the time. What I really appreciated was he would take the time in the initial plea or whatever he was doing to really talk to them and reach out to them. And when they came back, "I'm real sorry, but here it is." And literally, man, I remember 50 years, 60 years was something that was kind of there. And it always it impressed me, and it also made me kind of, you were talking earlier about, kind of being, in high school I was, I wasn't always the best student, and of course, we always had folks who, kind of getting into trouble and doing some things. So for me, I had more of an affinity towards the defendants that were kind of sitting there. But I say that in the context of what kind of judge do you think you would be? You kind of told us a little bit about your history, where you kind of come from, but how does that translate into the type of judge you'll think you'll be? Because you're absolutely right. Judges have a whole lot of effect on people's lives. I mean, you give somebody probation as opposed to 25 years. That's an incredible power, quite honestly, to have over people's lives. Tell us a little bit about what you think you would be doing as a judge.
Well, Eric, I mean, obviously, laughing back, I wasn't the best student either. I mean, if it wasn't for, second, third, or fourth chances, I probably wouldn't be here today. So I wouldn't say that I would necessarily be just send them away, throw away the key all the time. You got to look at the cases individually. And sometimes you got to figure out what the underlying problem is. Like now, if we're talking about, seriously violent individuals that are going to continue to harm our society, hurt our children, things like that, then, I think we would all in agreement that, we need to do what's best for society sometimes. So, but if you're talking about, you got to get to the root of the problem too. I mean, it's not, and it's what the role I've taken on as a prosecutor when I was a prosecutor as well. You can't just lock them up and throw away the keys. You got to try to figure out what the underlying problem is, whether it's a mental illness, whether it's a substance abuse. I mean, I grew up, I lost friends to gangs and drugs, and so you got to try to figure out and how are we going to make our community safer? How are we going to make our community better? How are we going to? I mean, you send them away to prison, they're going to come out, they're still going to have that mental illness, they're still going to have that substance abuse issues that they had going in. So in order to end that revolving door, we got to get to the underlying problem, the root of the problem. I think a lot of judges are currently doing that right now, and it's to make our community safer, to help the individual. And I think I would take every case, every individual that comes before me, and consider everything. I mean, I've always been a believer that I have to keep an open mind, and sometimes off the bat I think something, but when you hear everything and you truly are open to everything, all the the programs that are out there, you might find a different way that's going to help the community. So I would not just say I'm going to lock everybody up, but I would look at the individual, hear from family members, look at all the evidence, keep an open mind, and figure out how we're going to help that individual overcome some of those obstacles that they have.
And in all honesty, there are some individuals some folks, and I know it and I've seen it. There's some judges who just can't even understand that concept, and when there are people who are just saying, "Hey, look, you've got to be tough on criminals. You've got to do this. You got to do that," and some judges have that same belief, quite honestly, and they've never been exposed to an upbringing that might necessitate a second chance, might necessitate perhaps a third chance, depending on circumstance and other things. And I say that to kind of segue into something that I find incredibly informative, that you kind of just told me about, and I think I'd realized it at one point, and sitting here looking at it, we've got 17 felony courts in Dallas County. There are currently no Latinos judges. on any one of those felony courts as judges. We've got 13 misdemeanor courts, and there's only one Latino judge. Now, not to say that you have to be a Latino to kind of understand the need for a second chance or kind of have that upbringing, but it certainly, I think, helps to be empathetic to one's position when you grow up in a situation where you didn't necessarily have someone who went to college and provided a pathway, and you're kind of making it on your own. It's difficult, and people can kind of understand that. I think can understand what we're currently going through. And I bring that up specifically with respect to Latinos because, we've been in the schools and we've been, over this past few months, kind of getting, students registered to vote and things of that nature. What people might find startling is that 50% of our kids in Texas schools are Latino. Here in Dallas County, 73% are Latino in DISD. So that kind of tells you, hopefully that we don't have that same type of correlate numbers in our criminal courts and other things, but we're much younger. Latinos are a much younger generation of folks, much younger than even African Americans and of course Anglos. So we're going to be in that process a little bit more. Having judges who can be more understanding of the defendant standing there when he talks about having a difficult upbringing, when he's talking about having mental health issues that have been undiagnosed. It's incredibly important to have somebody who has some empathy with respect to that. Now, on the opposite end, some people may say, hey, look, man, that's not your job as a judge to do that. The criminal defense attorney should advocate for that person and do this or do that. How do you feel about those people who might, hurl something like that at you?
Well, I mean, it's, the Democratic Convention opened up with diversity, how important diversity was. And I think in the roles of the judges, diversity is just as important because, it's those life experiences that we bring. And, while a defense attorney does need to advocate for his client, you got to have a judge who's able to understand what that defense attorney's advocating. And, sometimes when you've seen some of that stuff outside of a criminal courthouse, when you've seen it in your day-to-day lives, you're more likely to be able to either believe it or not believe it. And then, it goes to kind of keeping an open mind and ensuring that not just convictions or anything like that, but just ensuring that justice is served. Yeah. So I think, diversity is important in all aspects of life, college, school, our criminal justice system, in every aspect of society that we live in. So,
Hector, we talked earlier, and we kind of, I was talking to you about, we have some different folks running for office on the show and other things, and some people are really at ease with asking for monies, contributions for things, and some are more difficult. And quite honestly, when we have the judges on, it's always a situation where it's more difficult because it's hard to ask for money. Mm-hmm. But hey, that's what gets you, quite honestly, your name and your face out there. It requires some of that. So I'm going to do it for you and kind of let anybody who wants to send you some money so that you can have an opportunity to win in the election. First of all, they can donate. It's unlimited in terms of the donations that they can make to your campaign, right? Up to $5,000. So if anybody wants to donate $5,000. The November 8th election, right? So we're kind of right around the corner in terms of, do you have signs and yard signs and things of that nature?
They're in the process of being printed.
Okay, so how would someone who might be interested listening in, wants to help with your campaign, where could they go to get more additional information? Would it be this Facebook?
Yes.
Okay, so you go to facebook.com, is it /Garza for Judge, Garza for Judge. Also, you've got a P.O. box here if anybody is interested in sending a check, perhaps. Is there some sort of form that they got to fill out with it, or?
Yes, they just basically give me their address, their phone number, their occupation, their employer.
Okay, so those things, give that information over to Hector and send it off to P.O. Box 225-015, Dallas, Texas 75222, 5015. And you're sitting there like, man, this feels funky. But that's what it takes, sometimes to kind of get your name out there. The name is Hector Garza. You're running for the 195th District Court. Now, when people go, this is going to be a district-wide race, right? So everybody who's living in Dallas County Is anything outside of Dallas County? I wouldn't think so.
No.
So
just
everything within Dallas County, if you're living in Dallas County, Hector Garza's name is going to be on the ballot. Of course, he is the Democrat running for the 195th. So look it up, help him out, get his name out there. Any parting words, Hector?
No, just thank you for having me be here, introduce myself to your public, and just let's get out and vote.
It's a real pleasure, man. You get out there and vote. November 8th is the election date. Early voting starts October 24th, so make sure you guys get out there and do it. Thank you so much, Hector, for coming on out, man, and good luck in the election. Thank you, guys. We're going to take a real quick break, and we're going to bring our second guest on. But once again, thank you, Hector, for coming on out. You guys come back.